is Stefan Hartman, physician assistant and exercise science specialist and health coach at ironmedicinepa.com. Today, I'm going to be talking about longevity science, supplementation to increase lifespan and health span. We're going to be going through some of the supplements that I use myself. This is all based on literature, believe it or not. Scientists have been looking at how to increase the lifespan and health span of yeast and rodents, mind you. But at the cellular level, these organisms are not so different than us. So we have to think, how can we use this? Now, there's going to be a 4-part series to this, and pretty much everything that I do at ironmedicinepa.com is about increasing health span and lifespan. But I've created this series that I've seen in literature could potentially help us live longer and live better, including supplementation, autophagy, sauna therapy, and cryotherapy. And some of the leading experts in the field use these modalities. Dr. Brand Stanfield, he has a YouTube channel as well, and this is his current, I would call, stack, things that he uses every day. I don't use all of these, I don't agree with all of them, but it's just one modality that's out there currently. He uses some interesting things like Metformin, and what else does he use that I don't use? Tyrostilbene and sulfurophane, some plant compounds that I'm not a huge fan of, but he uses it, and I think my mom uses some of these as well. Not Metformin though, that one, it's a diabetic medication, but we'll get into that a bit later. Let's see. Let's go to my workout supplement plan. Now, you'll be able to find this whole lecture in the show notes as well and be able to click on any of these links. So my morning is, wake up, drink plenty of water. I've been implementing intermittent fasting at this point, so I'm not actually eating food in the morning. I kind of space my meals out, so I'm only eating at this point 2 times a day. I might change that this weekend because I'm playing a tennis tournament, so I probably will eat something in the morning so I have just a bit more energy. But throughout the work week, I don't eat anything until about 1 p.m. And when I do eat, I try to do a nutritious animal-based meal. During my workouts, I will often utilize a pre-workout drink, my custom pre-workout drink, which includes creatine, Lcitrulline, L-arginine, Niacin, betaine anhydrous, BCAAs, and a little bit of honey. And we'll talk about why I use all those later. And then I'll usually work out at the gym, but if I'm playing tennis, I'll typically avoid the niacin. I hate the flushing. Alternatively, I'll use something called True Niagen. This is from a company based on the research by one of the researchers, foremost researchers out there. We'll talk about him later, who's doing these studies. Hydrolyzed collagen peptides, I use that in my coffee in the morning. Post-workout drink, plus or minus whey. I haven't been using whey recently. I found that I am not getting sore with the BCAAs, and so I don't need to implement whey. I get enough protein through the meats that I eat. So let's get into it. I'll get into the reads of the studies. Hydrolyzed collagen peptides, I love these. They actually make the coffee taste a bit richer. And great studies coming out. Dermatological applications all the way to treating inflammatory conditions such as osteoarthritis. They're basically, you can get them in 3 different compounds. You can get marine compounds such as fish, porcine, which is pork, and bovine, which is cow. And it's from the cartilage of these animals, their knuckles and the ligaments. And they hydrolyze it into a very absorbable, bioavailable compound, kind of like a protein powder. And you can put it in anything and it tastes fine. You don't even notice you're eating bovine or fish. But this goes under the theory that collagen loss starts in the body as early as 29 years of age. And at 40 years, the human body can lose about 1% per year. So at about 80 years, your body can decrease 70% overall in comparison to young adults. So collagen is what makes our skin look healthy and young. It would help our joints move well, and potentially even helps blood vessel repair, cornea, so your eyesight, so potentially could help vision. So all sorts of applications for collagen. The tricky part in the past was I don't think there was the science or the processing that could make it so readily bioavailable, but now we do have it. And there are evidence from systematic reviews that indicate that oral administration of intact hydrolyzed collagen peptides improves clinical manifestation of skin health. Almost all the included studies reported the beneficial effects of collagen supplementation, and no inconsistencies have been seen in regard to these studies. So that's really cool. So cheers to collagen. Creatine is one of the supplements that I learned about in my exercise science studies in undergrad. One of the most studied supplements ever. Thousands of studies, really. And there's short and long-term studies showing that in healthy and diseased populations, in infants and elderly, in dosage ranging from very little to large amounts that I don't even take, up to 5 years, have consistently shown that creatine supplementation poses no adverse health risk and may provide a number of health and performance benefits. I get a lot of people that tell me, oh, it'll cause kidney damage. Well, I guess if you use an extraordinary amount, let's say 30 plus grams a day, and some studies are even using 30 grams a day. But I'd say doing wild, yeah, it could probably hurt the kidneys. But doing a normal amount, such as what I do, about 5 grams a day, that potentially is healthy. So how does it work? Let's talk about that. So creatine is naturally found in protein-rich foods. It is an essential component of the most basic cellular energy process on Earth, known as the ATP creatine phosphokinase system. And most mitochondria, most cells use this. So supplementing with it increases available energy within the cell. Traditionally, creatine is used by strength athletes to generate more skeletal muscle force repetitions. And many studies support it for this application. But there's other applications as well. And again, a meta-analysis of 21 studies found that there was no decrease in renal function by supplementing with creatine. Let's look at some of the alternative ways we can use creatine. So, 1, enhanced tolerance to exercise in the heat. I found this fascinating and very applicable to tennis athletes in Florida, because we're out here sweating, working very hard, and heat exhaustion can be a real thing out here. But they found that supplementing with creatine increased intracellular water and reduced thermoregulatory and cardiovascular response to prolonged exercise. So really cool for Florida athletes. Enhanced rehabilitation from injury. So creatine supplementation lessened the amount of muscle atrophy and detrimental effects on muscle associated with immobilization while promoting a greater gain strength during rehabilitation. So think of the implementation we can use for patients who are bedridden in the hospital, or patients who are in long-term care facilities. So yes, elderly, so maybe grandmother who's weak, maybe we can help her get stronger, get out of bed again. So this is really cool stuff. Brain and spinal cord neuroprotection. So creatine supplementation prophylaxis in rats demonstrated significant neuroprotection from spinal cord injury, cerebral ischemia, and traumatic brain injury. So potentially this could make us more resilient to injury. Ischemic heart disease. So prophylactic creatine supplementation may be beneficial for patients at risk for myocardial ischemia and or stroke. Surprisingly, no large studies have been done on this. I wonder why. Perhaps because it's so cheap, you can't make money off creatine? In diabetes type 2, Gulano and Associates supplemented patients with type 2 diabetes with a placebo or creatine, 5 grams a day, so that's about what I take, for 12 weeks during training. Creatine supplementation significantly decreased hemoglobin A1C, which is a marker for diabetes, and glycemic response to standardized meal, as well as increased GLUT4 translocation. So really cool stuff with creatine. Let's talk about the next one, niacin. I utilize this on my training days in the gym. It does cause flushing at me. I currently am up to about 300 milligrams that I take prior to a workout, but I did start with only 50, and 50 made me flush, and I know people that flush at 25 milligrams. So some people are very sensitive to this. In metabolic syndrome patient, niacin is known to significantly increase HDL, decrease CRP, which is an inflammatory marker, LDL-C, and triglycerides, as well as improve endothelial function by 22% after 52 weeks of supplementation of 1,000 milligrams, which is a lot. And if you can tolerate the flushing associated with that or figure out a way around it, really cool potential application for the metabolic syndrome patient. The National Cholesterol Education Program expert panel on detection, evaluation, and treatment of high blood cholesterol in adults recommends supplementing niacin for the metabolic syndrome patient for the reasons stated above. Risks only at extremely high doses. We're talking about doses that you wouldn't think about taking. NAD Plus. So this is the molecule I was just taking here from True Niagen, Chromadex, this company. I have no affiliation with them. So therapeutic potential of NAD boosting molecules, the in vivo evidence. So NAD levels steadily decline with age, resulting in altered metabolism and increased disease susceptibility. So restoration of the NAD plus levels in old or diseased animals can promote health and extend lifespan. So I utilize this now because I work my body pretty hard. I play tennis every day. I'm out in the sunlight in Florida, potentially accumulating some damage. So I want to be repairing my body as quick as I break it down so I can get stronger and potentially slow down aging. So that's why I use NAD. We're talking about more NAD plus precursors and including niacin. So niacin would be the cheap alternative to the one I was just taking here. You can get niacin in bulk for a couple bucks. Well, NAD plus 90-day supply of that is a bit pricey. But NAD plus precursor supplementation is discussed in the longevity community to slow aging, fight the harmful effects of metabolic disease, and improve lifespan. And my mom takes some as well. NAD plus will likely be depleted as the body fights COVID. Interesting. So we can see how there's an association between infectious disease states, and a depletion of NAD plus. We can look at elderly COVID-19 patients who are at real risk of complications due to impaired immune function, cytokine storm, and defective respiratory function, and administration of things like NAD plus can minimize these changes through its potent immunomodulation and longevity effects. So really cool stuff with NAD, not only in the longevity universe, but perhaps even treating infectious diseases. Niacin increases NAD plus pretty much the same way as the more expensive compound does. So pretty cool stuff. So we're looking here at patients with systemic NAD deficiency, and it improves muscle performance in adult onset mitochondrial myopathy. I know one patient who has a mitochondrial disease like this, and now NAD plus is experimental, so we cannot prescribe it for him. But it's something that such patients might want to do their own research on. We administered an increasing dose of NAD plus booster niacin, vitamin B3 form, 750 to 1,000 milligrams a day, for patients and their match controls for 10 to 4 months respectively. Blood NAD increased in all subjects, up to 8-fold, and muscle NAD plus of patients reached the level of their controls. Some patients showed anemia tendency, while muscle strength and mitochondrial biogenesis increased in all subjects. In patients, muscle metabolome shifted towards controls, and liver fat decreased even 50%. Our evidence indicates that blood analysis is useful for identifying NAD plus deficiency and points niacin to be efficient NAD plus booster for treating mitochondrial myopathy. I think mitochondrial myopathy might be more common than most people think. Think about chronic fatigue syndrome. We see so many patients with these disorders where they're just having this slow decline, and we don't have any answers for them. To my knowledge, identifying the health of the mitochondria is not possible. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at this study again, see how they actually identified this, and see if this is any sort of readily available test, because this is not something we routinely check for, such as mitochondrial health. Let's see, TMG, betaine anhydrous. Yes, I've actually increased my dose of this. I'm taking up to almost 4 grams a day based on a study I recently saw. I don't know if I have that study here, but I no longer take such a low dose. So what am I up to? I'm up to about 4 grams a day at least, if not 5 grams. So it's a powerful and safe methyl donor. So TMG easily donates 3 methyl groups to the body, and is required for millions of biochemical reactions in the human body. Here are just a few examples, according to Jim Stefani, PhD. Betaine supplementation lowers homocysteine concentrations and improves some clinical conditions in studies, including heart disease, glucose tolerance in both diabetic and non-diabetic patients. These studies lasted for 13 to 16 years. Betaine dosage was typically 6 grams per day. That's why I'm increasing my dosage based on this study. Liver disorders, as part of the liver healing and protection formulas. So it helps heal liver as well. 20 studies on this as well. Alleviates depression, is good for those with an MTHFR defect. Bodybuilding studies have shown that increases strength and performance as little as 2 weeks of supplementation. So while human studies have just started, a 200-pound individual with a 20% body fat can expect to lose as much as 5 pounds of fat and gain as much as 12 pounds of muscle. Really cool stuff. Cardiac protection, so conversion of homocysteine to methionine. It's a general health preventative that's part of a formula for maintaining good health and disease prevention. TMG has been shown to increase hepatic glutathione. Glutathione is an essential monoclone. We've seen it be completely depleted in those patients who suffer in the ICU with COVID-19. So glutathione is a very important little molecule out there. TMG also suppresses inflammation. It helps to metabolize fats and allows the body to burn fat rather than protein or muscle during exercise. The result is less cramping, increased endurance, and better utilization of fat stores. And that's why I use it. L-arginine is freely available in beef, and it's another supplement that bodybuilders use. And it may be also important for the hypertensive patient. So again, we're talking about glutathione, very important. Glutathione is a tripeptide thiol antioxidant. Arginine is conditionally essential amino acid that functions as the obligate subject for the nitric oxide production through the actions of the nitric oxide synthase enzymes. So really cool. So L-arginine can be a building block of both glutathione and NOS. So hypertension may depend on multiple factors. Among them is the relevant to site the activation of the renin-angiotensin system, mainly by renin overexpression secondary to low vitamin D, the decreased activity of eNOS, and decreased levels of GSH. As already described for diabetes, the combination of low GSH and low nitric oxide leads to higher calcium influx into the vessel wall in the smooth muscle with vasoconstriction, as demonstrated also in animal models. Since in hypertensive patients, the low levels of GSH are often accompanied by a decrease of the companion enzymes and increased lipid peroxidases, the prevailing hypothesis is that glutathione decrease is due to a burst of reactive oxygen species production secondary to an inflammatory process. It has been demonstrated that glutathione depletion induces chronic oxidative stress and causes hypertension in normal rats. This is accompanied by inactivation and sequestration of nitric oxide by ROS, leading to diminished bioavailability. So you can see here how hypertension may be way more complicated than it's probably been ever explained to you. And L-arginine can prove some help. And there's another one that's similar to L-arginine, L-citrulline. And these are two of the safest supplements known to increase nitric oxide, so NOS, and decrease blood pressure, as determined by meta-analysis. Let's look at here. Effective oral L-arginine administration. So they did pretty high dose, more than I'm doing, 5 grams 3 times a day for 1 month in renal failure patients. So these are pretty sick patients. So let's look at the before treatment. They had higher levels of homocysteine, and afterwards they have a bit of a decrease. So not a huge one, but pretty cool to see this in renal failure patients. There's not much that's done typically for them other than dialysis. Let's see. 5 grams a day of L-arginine anti-aging pilot study results. Okay, so they noticed remarkable improvement in 55%, mild improvement in 35, and 10%. Okay, interesting stuff here. Using an anti-aging. And that's what we're all about here. L-arginine benefits are vast with no deleterious side effects, even large doses up to 30 grams a day. Okay, what can it do here? It facilitates the release of growth hormone, insulin, glucagon, and prolactin. It is a component of the hormone vasopressin produced by the pituitary gland. It is a physiological precursor of diverse biological compounds such as we talked about, nitric oxide, polyamines, proline, glutamate, creatine even. Okay. It's a booster of immunity. Arginine stimulates the thymus and promotes lymphocyte production. This may be key for arginine's ability to promote healing of burns and other wounds. Arginine also has a positive effect on cerebral as well as systemic circulation. It enhances sexual performance in males. It protects from as well as heals gastric ulcers induced by various agents. So many potential anti-aging benefits for L-arginine. Let's talk about L-citrulline again. So diminished availability of nitric oxide, the gaseous signaling molecule involved in regulation of numerous vital biological functions, contributes to the development of multiple age and lifestyle-related risk factors and diseases, including hypertension, atherosclerosis, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. L-citrulline, as well as L-arginine, increase nitric oxide biosynthesis. Pretty cool. Unfortunately, L-citrulline is rarely found in food. There's highly concentrated in watermelon, but I don't see anyone sitting down to wolf down a bunch of watermelon. It also would be quite sugary. I don't know if we want to do that all the time. Thankfully, it's been synthesized and we can take it as a supplement. L-citrulline provides indirect benefits to vascular health by modulating chronic low-grade inflammation. L-citrulline ingestion has been shown to reduce serum inflammatory cytokine concentrations, so the cytokine storm, as infamous in the COVID disease. Recent studies have placed citrulline at the center of the CD4 and T cell metabolism, function, and survival. These are very important. You may have heard of these before as it's related to the HIV and AIDS diseases, how those diseases affect your CD4 counts and T cells. So considering the equal importance of L-arginine in the CD8 and T cell metabolic profile in vivo, it can be hypothesized that L-citrulline supplementation will directly and indirectly modulate the metabolism of innate and adaptive immune cells, improve the efficiency of immune response to pathogen, and reduce both the magnitude and duration of inflammatory response to antigenic challenges. Taken together, these studies suggest that L-citrulline supplementation is likely to have great clinical benefit, especially in the context of inflammation aging. The chronic low-grade inflammation associated with aging, which is well-known aggravating factor for cardiometabolic disorders, poor vascular health, and overall morbidity and mortality. So another reason to use citrulline, but I should also mention what bodybuilders use. It's a vasodilator. It improves your vascularity, so you're going to see your veins popping out in your arms, similar to the way L-arginine would do it. So branched-chain amino acids is well known in the bodybuilding community, and it attenuates sore muscle, and I've definitely noticed an improvement in my recovery ability if I'm using BCAAs during my workout, and that's why I use them every time. However, there's also good evidence that BCAAs can perhaps aid in management of liver cirrhosis, and perhaps you've heard of this. It's a disease where the liver kind of shrivels up, kind of looks like beef jerky, and it's related to many pathogens, hepatitis, B and A to a lesser degree, C to a greater degree. What else? Oh, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease can cause liver cirrhosis. Obviously, chronic alcohol abuse can lead to liver cirrhosis, and there's no really good management for these. These patients are basically put on a list for a liver transplant, and there's nothing to do except treat the consequences of such as hyperammonemia. Nutritional supplementation with branched-chain amino acids in advanced cirrhosis, a double-blind randomized trial. In advanced cirrhosis, they say, long-term nutritional supplementation with oral BCAA is useful to prevent progression or progressive hepatic failure and to improve surrogate markers and perceived health status. Really cool. So amelioration of hypoalbuminemia associated with BCAAs. So supplementation correlated with decreased fat accumulation in skeletal muscle, maintenance of skeletal muscle mass, and improved glucose sensitivity, all factors which may contribute to improving the survival of patients with liver cirrhosis. It's really cool stuff about BCAAs, more so than just a bodybuilder supplement. Let's talk about Metformin, because Dr. Brian Stanfield, he's using this. So this compound has been used traditionally in diabetics. It's been used for a very long time in diabetics as well. But there's ongoing human Metformin trials, to see if it will improve lifespan. It's already been tested in the rodent model, C. elegans, and these flies, these Drosophila. I've been showing that Metformin has shown to be having a pro-longevity and health span, extending the properties in the roundworm and the mice, potentially even humans. And other model organisms such as the fruit fly and rats have similar benefits has not been identified. Okay, although data from prospective clinical trials in humans on metformin in aging are only just planned or beginning to emerge, widespread use of the drug in aging and otherwise healthy individuals requires far more granular understanding of the effects and genetic and environmental determinants of its success in promoting aging versus detrimental side effects. Yeah, so I'm not a huge fan of using metformin for anti-aging, not just because of the side effects. Most people will get gastric upset with this, but just because, it is a powerful compound, and I'm not sure we completely understand what it is doing in people. If you're on it as for a diabetes regimen, be happy that you're on something that could potentially increase your lifespan, but I wouldn't go out and think about taking this as maybe some of the other longevity people are doing. Let's see, glutathione and its decrease associated with age disease. Yeah, we've talked about that, so we want to help support glutathione. Whether supplementing with glutathione can help, or glutathione by itself, like such as liposomal glutathione, I haven't really seen studies on that, but we can help support this by making sure we have enough selenium, making sure we're supplementing with L-arginine, that sort of thing can potentially help improve our glutathione levels, because it is quite important. We can see here in a study by Polenikov his theory of how deficiency of glutathione is related to many chronic diseases, but also specifically in enhancing virus replication, oxidative damage in the lung, and hyperinflammation. So for these patients, potentially supplementing with glutathione might help. But whether we should, let's see, in disease associated with glutathione deficiency, we should potentially supplement it. So as we saw in the previous slides, many chronic diseases are associated with its deficiency. Also, elderly are known to be deficient and thus suffer more with disease such as COVID. It can be supplemented in tablet or liposomal form. However, we can boost it through other mechanisms, including fasting, L-arginine, and they supplemented elderly with cysteine and glycine for 14 days and found that doing so brought their glutathione levels up to healthier control levels. Since it's known that elderly have deficiency of glutathione, and bringing it up to a younger person's levels, it is significant. Vitamin D supplementation. I know that many patients are vitamin D deficient, and if we look at vitamin D from a glutathione perspective, vitamin D suppresses cytokine activation and enhances gene activation related to glutathione. So we can indirectly support glutathione through having enough vitamin D in our systems. And there's little risk of supplementing with vitamin D in patients and many potential benefits. The only risk would be hypercalcemia, but that is more so a problem in those with renal disease. The overwhelming bulk of clinical trial evidence supports the conclusion that prolonged intake of up to 10,000 units of vitamin D3 likely poses no risk of adverse effects in almost all individuals in the general population. Since most patients are deficient in vitamin D when their blood levels are drawn, the consequences of low vitamin D are too numerous to mention. But many people are aware of the dangers, including increased risk of bone fractures and more infamously now associated with increased risk of death of COVID-19. However, in my opinion, sunlight and wild-caught fish are the best sources of vitamin D. Supplementing with a pill form is potentially adequate if you can't get it through other sources. But I try to get mine through the natural sources. We're going to briefly mention sulfurophane just because Brad Stanfield takes it. It's a plant compound. It's found in these broccoli sprouts. I know my mom was making these, was sprouting these for a while and taking them. Some different theories on this. It is basically a plant toxin, but if you think about the theory of hormesis, how a little bit of a toxin can help you, then this kind of makes more sense. And it has been studied. So sulforaphane activates the antioxidant and anti-inflammatory response by inducing NRF2 pathway and inhibiting blah, blah, blah. It also has epigenetic effect by inhibiting blah, blah, and DNA methyltransferases and modifies mitochondrial dynamics. So moreover, sulforaphane preserves proteome homeostasis by activating proteasome, which has been shown to lead to increased cellular lifespan and prevent neurodegeneration. So many studies have shown the longevity benefits of those who include broccoli in their diet. The key potentially is sulforaphane. More sulforaphane activating NRF2 has been shown to decrease heart attacks and diabetes. Although sprouts contain more sulforaphane than mature broccoli, are fun and easy to grow, it is simpler to supplement with sulforaphane. Broccamax is a trusted brand. You open the capsule and you dissolve the powder in olive oil, which gives the oil a nutty taste. Numerous studies have shown higher absorption of liquid vitamins over hard vitamins. Therefore, to get the biggest bang for your buck, make sure the vitamins you take are dissolved. Some, like ester C, dissolve readily in water. Others float on the water and need olive oil to dissolve. Supplementation may be better than consuming the broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables, as in large amounts they have antithyroid properties such as progroitin and thiocyanate ion. Now, my mom does take this, and this is some of her methods for getting it into her system. She enjoys it. Not one I take. Resveratrol and pterostill being another plant compounds. Over the years, several studies have found that foods rich in polyphenols protect against age-related disease such as atherosclerosis, cardiovascular disease, cancer, arthritis, cataracts, osteoporosis, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and Alzheimer's disease. Resveratrol and pterostilbene, the polyphenol found in grape and blueberries, have beneficial effects as anti-aging compounds through modulating the hallmarks of aging, including oxidative damage, inflammation, and telomere attrition, and cell senescence. Resveratrol is a molecule that plants produce when under stress, for example, when there is not enough rain. Longevity studies done with resveratrol often report stomach upset as a side effect. So resveratrol needs to be taken after a meal, dissolved in olive oil to avoid upset stomach. And this is something my mom has found, because she does take this. The scientist and researcher who found the resveratrol molecule, David Sinclair, who is author of a great book that I recommend everyone reading on anti-aging. He takes resveratrol after eating some yogurt. Some people, such as mom, take it fasting. She takes it after a small miso vegetable and tofu soup, which is fairly calorie-free. The benefits of resveratrol are being debated by scientists. Dr. Brenner, who invented NR, says that it causes cells to be too stressed to replicate. Dr. Sinclair, the author of Lifespan, Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to, who found the resveratrol molecule, says it is useful to extend life. So it's not one I take, one my mom does take, one that some people in the longevity science universe take. Melatonin, we'll briefly mention this, how it is helpful in decreasing the anti-inflammatory response to patients with COVID-19. It's currently actually being used in some ICUs for patients suffering with COVID-19 at very high doses. We're seeing up to 200 milligrams twice daily. Not something that I would ever consider taking. I know my mom, who's very focused on the anti-aging universe, takes about 6 milligrams of melatonin at night. And the hard part is finding a melatonin capsule that doesn't have dextrose or sucralose or one of these other sweeteners in it. Omega-3s, we try to increase our omega-3s best we can. I try to do it best through natural supplementation. You can get plenty of it in eggs, fish, but you can take it in pill form. And supplementation and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease with omega-3, a systematic review and meta-analysis. They're saying that omega-3 supplementation lowers inflammation in healthy middle-aged and older adults. That was a randomized controlled trial. And they say omega-3 supplementation decreases liver fat. Optimal dose, not sure about that. And they need more trials. But meta-analysis of 13 RCTs of 1,233 major depressive disorder subjects showed an overall beneficial effect of omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids on depressive symptoms in major depressive disorder. We know that Vasipa, which is a brand name, it's a type of omega-3 fatty acid and is found in fish oil. It lowers triglycerides. So I can actually prescribe this to patients who want to improve their heart disease risk. So in conclusions, here is my supplement list. Creatine, I use that for muscle mass and energy. Niacin for vasodilation, longevity, improved blood flow. TMG, betaine anhydrous. So I'm taking now about 5 grams of that for increased strength, energy, decreased body fat, it heals liver, increases glutathione, increases SAMI, and decreases homocysteine, and may prolong life. L-arginine, I take about 5 grams a day. It facilitates multiple hormone processes. It's an immune booster, improves circulation, enhances wound healing. Citrulline for vasodilation, increases nitric oxide, improves blood flow. And unlike these others, it is rarely found in food. BCAAs, let's see, I'm taking a bit more than that. I'm taking about 5 grams of that to speed muscle recovery. True Niacin, it's a bit expensive. I take that on occasion when I don't want to take niacin and get a flushing effect. I need to order more BCAAs online. I'm almost out. And hydrolyzed collagen peptides. They improve skin and joint health, potentially reverse arthritis. And these are some of the other supplements used in the longevity field. We've talked about all these. I also use honey in my supplement in the morning, pre-workout, just for the taste, because there's no other sweeteners in these. The only other taste in it would be the citrulline, which tastes a bit citrusy. But besides that, there's no taste in my workout drink, which is fine, how I like it, and I just drink it with a bit of honey. So that was all. You're going to be able to find show notes in the comments. You can read any of the studies for yourself. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're going to start taking any of these supplements. Hope you enjoyed the lecture. Bye.